Welcome back to Got No Control Podcast. I'm your host, RONEK. Make sure to head over to GotNoControl.com and check out official merchandise, t-shirts, hoodies, and much more. GotNoControl.com. Make sure to check out our sponsors, 360 Spray Paint. 360 Spray Paint is a spray paint company that is manufactured and distributed out of Mexico and aim to offer high quality spray paint to all spray paint enthusiasts. So make sure to check them out at 360 California. And with that being said, I'm happy to introduce my special guest today, A1. How you doing today, brother?
Hanging in there, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for stopping by today, man. The studio. It's a little hot today. I don't know what's going on with the Cali weather.
It's all good.
It's not easy being a teddy bear in this heat. um, I get really excited, brother, when I get to sit with somebody like yourself that is just full of so much history because you've been around for so much greatness. I wanted to start by diving into if you could tell us a little bit about where did A1 grow up and how was it growing up for A1?
Pretty much growing up for me was kind of odd, jumping bi-coastal. So I was growing up in LA, would spend winters or summers back east in New York. So going back and forth, whichever season I'd be out there, and then being out here, it was a trip because I'd see how things ran on both sides. A lot of influences.
Okay.
It was a great thing to I guess, and a blessing in disguise.
And when you're coming up, would you say, I know you were back and forth for vacations like we talked, but would you consider LA home for you?
Yeah, LA's pretty much home.
And what part of LA would be home for you?
East Hollywood area.
East Hollywood area?
Yeah, between Echo Park and Hollywood.
And for A1, does A1 come from, like a big family? Like, do you come from a bunch of siblings, or was it like something very small and minimal for you?
Well, my parents came from big families, but pretty
Yeah.
much mine was a broken home.
Okay.
So I have a half sister that's 23 years older than me, but we haven't spoken in a long time. And yeah, pretty much the way most of us were, just dealing with all the chaos, whatever we had to deal with.
Dealing with this chaos that you mentioned, right? Coming from a broken home and situations that we reflect on, or you reflect on today. Do you believe those experiences and those life lessons that you were given to as a child, it was kind of started open your mind to start exploring creative adventures?
Well, pretty much going through what I went through growing up, it taught me that it was hustle or die.
Okay.
So I had to struggle. I had to, make it for myself at an early age. And so pretty much, I guess from that, whatever endeavor I looked upon, I could take it on because of what I went through.
Gotcha. Does that ever make you feel or look at someone that came from a structured family, like a mom and dad, a happy home? Does that ever make you feel like you guys didn't get it the way I did type thing? Because you just came from so much, I got to get it from the ground up. Was there ever those thoughts amongst others?
Not really, dude.
Okay.
It was pretty much a thing of I was so busy in my survival mode
Yeah.
that I didn't have time to sit there and dwell on what other people were doing. You know what I mean? It's like I had to do what I had to do for myself and just keep it pushing.
Okay. Being creative, right? Whether it was playing a sport or trying to, be a movie star, whatever it was, right? In your early beginnings, what does that look like for A1? Those early beginnings of like, hey, maybe I want to start being creative, doing whatever it is at that moment. How do those early stages look for you?
Well, be a little more specific as to create what form of creativity would you want me to talk about?
I guess for as far as creativity, I'm just anything in particular, right? Like going from a child, right, and just hanging out and playing with toys or whatnot, or just being a child. At what point do you kind of start becoming creative, whether it's drawing or anything of that nature?
Well, pretty much for me, adventuring with my cousins back east, that's where I got my introduction to graffiti at a young age.
Okay.
They were much older and they were already introduced to graffiti. Um, and also through my West Coast influences here at the time of that age, I had a passion for cars.
Okay. So you had a passion for cars aside of the graffiti stuff.
Yes.
How does the early introductions to cars start for you? Was it kind of like your dad had a car, or a friend or a neighbor, or how did that go about for you?
Well, growing up as a kid in the 70s,
Yeah.
you would still see a lot of like the muscle cars, hot rods, stuff like that would be driving around. Um, in my own home, my father was my complete opposite. Like
Okay.
he wouldn't eat chicken with his hands because he didn't want to get his hands greasy.
Okay.
So whereas I'm a total gearhead, the family would joke around and say that I'm the milkman's son.
And that's kind of what sparked the passion for cars.
Pretty much for me, growing up around seeing those early cars, the freedom that it had, the self-expression, especially in the 70s into the 80s, like people were really expressing themselves with cars in the similar ways as people express themselves with art.
Okay. I know you mentioned that your cousins were the ones kind of like responsible for getting you into graffiti, right? How does that go about? You said East Coast, you would go over there for vacation during summer vacation?
Yeah. Pretty much my mom would send me for either summer or winter vacations to whatever family members wanted to put up with me for that break.
Yeah.
So that year, 1982, my aunt had gone through her divorce, and she was out dating.
Okay.
So she was gonna, go out and do her thing. My cousins had plans to go out painting with their friends,
Hmm.
and basically she told them they had to take care of me. They dragged me along to go paint trains with them,
Okay.
and that became my introduction to the whole graffiti, the actual introduction to graffiti.
How old are you at this time?
I was 10.
10, already going to go hit the trains in New York.
They were beating my ass in the train yard. Because to me, I had the mentality of this is wrong,
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there with panicking, like, no, we shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And they're literally punching me, kicking my ass, telling me like, hurry up and fill it in. So I'm sitting there at 10 years old crying
Yeah.
out,
I don't want to do this.
yeah. So, and ironically, here I am, 42 years later, just, still on the same bandwagon that my cousin, and his friends bullied me into.
So how did that kind of look like? That they just told you write whatever, or they gave you a name, or how did that come about?
Well, pretty much in the beginning, it was helping them fill in. So they would just give me cans, just tell me, just spray.
Fill in this letter.
Just fill in. They would do the outlines. They would do whatever that they were trying to do, which now that I think about it, it was all toy as shit. But I mean, it was an adventure. It was like a Tom Sawyer, Huck Finn type adventure. I mean, we were running around in trains, and once I got past that whole that mental block of like, oh, this is wrong, we shouldn't be doing this. Yeah, it became a fun thing to go do.
Gotcha. And how old are you, say, when you kind of told yourself, like, I'm going to go from having to go with my cousins because I have to now I want to go?
I say it all happened in that same year. It became quite addictive. I mean, like, in all honesty, there's no greater rush. I mean, because it's like a big playground. You're sitting there playing in these in this yard full of these trains that are just at your disposal to fuck around with and do what you want to do with. So yeah, in the beginning, you start messing around and playing inside, hanging, swinging around on the handrail, on the bars, like there were monkey bars, and you start jumping around on them and jumping from one car to the next. The doors are open, so it becomes like a playground, and then you start getting the passion for spraying on them, and
Yeah.
it just led to more.
Do you have knowledge of what was the first stuff that you were actually be able to recognize on those trains, like as far as names?
In those early days, there was just so much
Yeah.
going on, but the people that really like stood out to me, without a doubt, was like TC5.
Okay.
They were really like putting in some great cars. Right, the FBA was putting it down hard too. UA was slaughtering the 6 line. I mean, it was just it was a lot. I mean, it was really like, I mean, the trains were truly, especially the 2s and the 5s, were just an absolute masterpiece. It was just like
Okay.
a gallery. They're just, you could just sit there and see like just nothing but just dope ass work that came from the heart. It was pure. It was raw. Like for example, one of my all time favorites that I really looked up to, I really enjoy seeing his cars, was Shane 125 out
Okay.
of Harlem, because this was a cat that could take like barf colors, like you're talking like yellow, orange, green, and brown, and he'd execute a panel piece that was sick. And you look at it like, bro, really? Like those colors you would have never thought would have worked out, but yet he was a master at this. Like, so it was great to be able to see a lot of those cars in those eras.
Did you ever come across any of these guys who being in those trainings? Painting? Did you ever, or even see them painting?
At my age, I was so young at the time that I didn't really, because there was that whole phobia of like fools will beat your ass and take your paint.
Yeah, yeah.
People, the whole possessiveness of yards and whatnot. So it was kind of a thing where you, I really didn't socialize with people. It was more of the underground graph thing, like keep it to yourself type thing.
Okay.
So for decades, I kept on that role of just, if I happen to bump into somebody, cool, but I didn't go out looking to meet other writers.
What was the feeling, brother, being a young kid? Because you say you're only 10, possibly 11 after a while, right? What was the feeling of being out on the street and watching a train go by with your art on it?
Well, at that era, that age, I really didn't have any art on there. It was mostly other people's stuff. Like I said, I mean, I was just helping my cousins with their shenanigans. But just even at that, once my introductions to just tags, just to see my tags just roll through, was an exhilaration in itself.
Okay.
Just to be able to get on the train and see a tag on the inside, as toy as it might have been, it still felt great to see it.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, that was part of the addiction of wanting to see more of it.
Gotcha. After vacation was over, bro, how was it coming back to LA? Like coming back to LA, right, which is home for you. How was it getting back? Would you were with the mentality like, damn, I got to bring this back home? Or were you kind of like, hey, I'm going to wait till next summer and I'm ready. I'm going to practice.
Nah, I came back home still hyped on that wave. I was still riding that wave.
Yeah.
And so I go back to school, and now the people I thought were my friends basically exiled me.
Okay.
Because of what I was doing. Like, they all saw what I was doing. I came back with photos Polaroid photos, and just all kinds of pictures that I took of trains out there, and walls, like, because the handball courts too, like just all kinds of graffiti that was out there at the time.
Yeah.
And so they saw that, and to them was like, oh, that's wrong. The same mentality that I initially had, like, this is wrong. I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
And so to them, they saw me as now an outcast, a criminal. So they basically shunned me.
Like, I don't want to hang out with you type thing?
I don't want to hang out with you no more because you're a bag dude. Like, you go spray painting walls at night.
Yeah.
I don't want, you go riding on buses. I don't want to hang out with you. I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
So they basically shunned me for it.
So when this was going about, right, with your friends that were kind of like, hey, I wanted to do it to you, you were already painting in LA?
Well, I was still in the just tag era. Like, I was still in the infancy. It was 82. I was coming back still fresh on that high.
Uh-huh.
So I was still working off of that. Like, the only thing that I had was knowledge of the only skill I had was my tags.
Yeah.
Which were still ridiculous. And trying to figure out, because of what I got the taste of, try to figure out how I could try to come up with a style.
Okay.
Because now I had pictures that I could reference and see what I could try to put together. And also, like, the tidbits that I picked up from my cousin's friends and my cousin, like how they were sitting there trying to tell me how to come up with a style.
Yeah.
Start with simple block letters and taking it into its infancy.
Gotcha.
And whereas they saw that as, because of at the time we just only had the gang stuff still going on here.
Yeah.
So they saw it still as cholo activity.
I see what you're saying. How long would you say it took you to develop a style?
Well, I mean, realistically, styles are always developing.
Yeah.
But to where I felt comfortable enough to start piecing, I would say it was about winter of '83
Okay.
because I was back east again, and again I had more influences there through my cousin and his homies that they were all doing. They had been influenced longer. They had been doing it. They were active there. So they would put me on game with like tips, racking paint.
Yeah.
What was the paint to look for? The Red Devil, Wet Look, Rust-Oleum, Krylon, like all the good stuff back then, and what inks to go get, like for our markers, instead of just using a simple Magnum 44 or a Sharpie.
Make your own type thing.
It was well, not only that, I mean, we had like the what you guys call the four fingers.
Yeah.
We called them ultra wides and the mini wides, and we had the Marsh pens, and yeah, of course, we were making our own drippers and stuff, and loading them with the T grade and the Garvey, and all that kind of stuff.
At this point of time, bro, did you kind of feel more accepted around your cousins and their friends for what you were getting into, which was graffiti, than back home?
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, not only that, at that time, basically, in the '80s, like the Bronx was a completely different place. So it was like it was a free for all.
Yeah.
You could basically, like pile up mattresses you found in a lot and go jump around and go have some fun, and then go later on go rack some paint, go catch some tags, and it was and at that, like, people, I felt comfortable because people didn't look down on me for wanting to go tag on the trains or on the walls with people with them.
Yeah.
It was more of a group thing, the camaraderie thing, which I feel didn't happen here in LA until about 86, 87, when Triax started organizing benches in Hollywood.
Okay. Just real quick, I just want to shout out the cousins. And how's the relationship with the cousins? You still in touch with them?
Well, sadly, my cousin's no longer with us.
May he rest in peace.
Last time I went to New York was when we buried him, which was in '92.
Okay.
New York life is a fast life,
Yeah.
so it caught up with them.
Now that we talk about New York life, right? You have New York life. I mean, street culture in general. I feel like culture is very important and it's very valuable to individuals that come from nothing. Because someone like me, I can only talk about myself, is the street culture is pretty much all we had, right? How would you define the difference between what you were seeing in New York street culture and LA street culture? How were you able to balance those two? Because you were kind of part of both of them.
Well, it was a transitional era. I mean, like 82, 83, 84, you had like a lot of like the introduction to breaking.
Yeah.
Especially like the mainstream through the movies. You had like you had Beat Street coming out, you had breaking coming out with the so you had like a taste of the East Coast, a taste of the West Coast. So once breakdancing got a little more introduced, and people would see in the movies, in the backgrounds of the movies, you see graffiti there. So now the graffiti became a teeny bit more accepted.
Okay.
By some people. Like, they'd look at it like, hey, that's pretty cool. Like, people that now became interested in breakdancing would look at it as the whole culture package. Like, wow,
okay.
The rap music, the breakdancing, like, wow, this is cool. What the DJs are doing. And I guess, and that's when people came up with the whole thing of, that hip hop comes in elements.
Oh, I see what you're saying. But then you come back home to LA and it was kind of more gang culture, more, the music was different, right?
The music was different, like you still had all the homies still bumping the oldies and all that. But now you had the younger kids that were who got the little bit of the movie influence.
Yeah.
And they were trying trying it out with the breakdancing and the pop locking.
Okay.
Because pretty much it seems like the West Coast was mostly more pop locking.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Than breakdancing.
How influential was the gang's culture, right, in which Chicanos know as placazos? How much that influenced you coming up in the West Coast? Did it have any influence in you?
In all honesty, no.
Okay.
Because I first off, I'm Cuban.
Okay.
So in Cuban culture, we frown upon the gang mentality.
Okay.
Like if you're truly the badass on the boulevard, you go on the street, you do it yourself.
Okay.
So it was being in a gang was frowned upon in Cuban culture.
Okay.
So to me, the gang graffiti was never anything that influenced my graffiti. Um, I knew it was there. It's something that was around me, but I let it be to itself. Like I made my decision in what my influences were, which was hip hop. So I kept to what I always called ghetto calligraphy.
Okay, I got you. You know, going back and forth with your cousins, you're paying the trains, right? What year would you say that you take your last vacation of the 92?
Well, actual last time going out there to go hang out was 87.
Okay, 87.
And then from there, like basically I stayed out here in the West Coast up until when my cousin passed in 92 that I went out there for the services. My aunt sadly couldn't take the loss and she lost it mentally. So we don't know whatever happened with her. Like the most that we knew that she was on the streets, homeless, had gone crazy, and other relatives couldn't they couldn't get in contact with. Like there was no communication. So I lost my ties with my family out there.
Okay. Did you did you ever have an opportunity to hang out there as graffiti related outside of the train yard? Like, did you ever get an opportunity to hang out like at other spots in New York?
Well, my cousins would take me to go hanging out, in their neighborhoods and certain little places like that. But mostly, for me, the obsession of being out there in the land of graph,
Yeah.
it was mostly a desire to go do graffiti related stuff. Like, let's
Okay.
go rack some paint, let's go rack some markers, or, whatever we could and go have some fun.
And your whole time of being out there in New York, brother, did you ever meet anyone out there, another writer aside of your cousins, or anybody that's not related to your cousins as far as friends or anything like that?
Well, there was my cousins, homies that, they did it for just a short span. Like a lot of the people that I got to meet out there were people that sadly didn't take it on a serious level.
Okay.
So they had the short lifespans on it. Like they were the fly by nights. They did it because the other people in the neighborhood were type of doing it.
Oh, okay. So just
Kind of like what I saw going on here with the bus thing. Eventually, like in the 90s, when, oh well, he's doing it, I'm going to do it too.
I see what you're saying. So you had a lot of guys that were just riding the wave, but weren't really dedicated to it.
Yeah, kind of like what a lot of writers of my generation, I'm sure, experience when they meet people like, oh yeah, I used to do that back in high school type of thing.
Oh,
They
I
say,
see what you're saying.
What
What do you think separated you from that? What do you think separated you from being that guy to being that guy that was fully dedicated?
I guess the drive,
Okay.
because I mean, for example, going through the crazy childhood I went through growing up, the fact that I'd go to school for the lunches to eat because I'd be homeless half the time,
Yeah.
and my classmates would trip on and see that my hands be full of paint, my lips would have paint from blowing through the tips, and because I'd be out at night out putting in work, go hit whatever I could, whether it was freeways or train yard, whatever. But I figured, I keep myself entertained and busy rather than being, huddled up, thinking on my situation. And it made it, I guess, different because it gave me more of a drive to go put in work, whereas they were just doing it as a trend.
I said just following the wave, like, oh, hip hop school right now. Let me get into this type thing.
Let me follow along. Like, oh, you got a uni painter. Let me go get a uni painter too.
I see what you're saying.
You got a mean streak. I want a mean streak too.
So, all these pictures and all this game that you were soaking up in New York, did you ever bring? I mean, you brought it with you right back to LA, but did you ever share any of that game to any LA writer at that moment?
And during that time, I had no real ties with LA writers.
Okay.
I did show all my homies that I had, like all my friends. I would show them all that stuff. Up until when my mom would find it, and then that's when she would take it and throw it away. Photo albums, black books, whatever, anything that was graffiti related, she would throw out.
Okay. At what point? Because you say you were back in LA full time. What you say, like in late '80s?
Yeah.
And at what point do you kind of start venturing out to where like, hey, I want to see what's going on in LA. Like, what's out here? Who's painting? What's names are out here?
Well, I mean, being that this was home base, I always had an eye out seeing who was up. You know,
Yeah.
my mom's beauty shop, for example, was on Third and Whitmer's, right near the Belmont Tunnel. So I would always see Gio and Rick, Skept, putting it, make like they were always putting in work all on Third Street. Rick would have like what we do now in yards.
Yeah.
He was doing at night on the street illegally.
Oh wow.
Full blown burners, 3Ds, highlights, backgrounds, characters, the whole package. And Rick was rocking these.
Yeah.
So being able to see that, and his obviously, with the rest of the crew, K2S was slaughtering it. That's why they were another influence of mine that I looked up to, being in that area. Because, like I said, I mean, I would see when Skept would pull off little stunts there and pull little pieces off on Third Street. And,
Yeah.
pretty much Third Street was their gallery. It was in a sense Third Street was their 2 yard.
Okay.
That was their train line in a sense. K2S had Third Street all the way up to Western or even a little further past. A Happy Holidays piece on the side of a hotel that they rocked in the middle of the night.
Oh wow.
All kinds of just sick little pieces like that. And you're like, well, you trip out, you just come the next morning. It's like, whoa, what? This wasn't there last night.
So you would kind of just walk by, and these guys have full on burners on the actual avenues.
On the actual streets, yes.
So they were really out there putting in the work.
Slaughtering it. Like definitely a force to be reckoned with back in that era.
Did you get a chance to watch that Reynaldo piece they put up?
Yes, I was going to school down the street from that. So I got to see when the Reynaldos went up on Beverly right there, Beverly and Union.
You got to see them painted. You got to see them painted, or you seen them when I was already painted?
No, obviously I saw it when it was already painted.
Okay.
But it was badass. And then not only that, around the same time, right down the street, across the street from Belmont High School's gate,
Yeah.
Rick did this sick burner with characters. And when I went to go flick it, the dudes from the Rascals were there dissing the wall.
Oh.
So I actually had taken Polaroids of these fools. Their nalgas are facing me while they're dissing the wall, and I'm trying to catch the wall, to catch a flick of it. But so yeah, I mean, so Rick was definitely somebody who I got to see, him, Blast 69, Shandu, they were putting a lot of work down there at Belmont, and that was another thing that for me I got to see a lot of. So having the taste of Belmont and my influences from back east, it was really, really great to be able to see that.
There's a lot of viewers and enthusiasts out there that will never understand how it feels to be inside Belmont Tunnel, right? Because it's no longer with us. You just kind of had to be there to witness it, right? Can you take me into what was that feeling of actually walking in there and being there and watching all the graph that was there?
So walking into Belmont, it was pretty much one of the, it was one of the great feelings of being able to see all that graffiti there.
Yeah.
It was a sense of greatness. If you had your piece rocking there, especially in that era, because there was a lot of competitiveness.
Okay.
And it was a great era because in the early days, it was the evolvement of graph. So you saw people go from stock tips to what we call the tester tips or the skinny tips that you guys call nowadays. Because in that era, once we found out about tips, there was only realistically 3 tips.
Yeah.
You had your skinnies, which you got from your model car kits, from the tester spray cans. You got for outlines and stuff. You got your window cleaner tips, which you guys call the New York Fats, and then you had the easy off oven cleaner tips, which people call the Rustos. We call them the softballs. So you had those 3 tips to play with afterwards. But I mean, even at that in the 80s, you had writers that painted Belmont that were for example, somebody who I really enjoyed painting with that I really looked up to was Blinky.
Blinky.
From DTK.
Okay.
I was blessed to paint with him when I was from UTI when we were doing some stuff at MacArthur Park. And in, I believe it was 89 after the San Francisco quake. And I gave him some tester tips and he had no idea on the flare action of them.
Yeah.
He was so used to just stock tip, and the dude would kill it with stock tip. I mean, you're talking sick, crispy outlines,
Oh wow.
like fills, everything, and it was all stock tip characters, everything. So that in that time, and Belmont was absolutely extraordinary. Not only Belmont, but a lot of people have also forgotten that in those 80s, you had Pan Pacific Park, which was the WCA spot. You had the Venice Pavilion as well, which was starting in its infancy. So there was a lot of good graph spots. You had into the mid to late 80s, you had the Woodman tracks out in the valley. The motor yard came to fruition because Pan Pacific eventually burned down, but there was a lot of good yards that really gave some good influence other than just Belmont in itself.
2024, bro. How does it make you feel knowing that you were able to witness something that's not there no more? Like the original Venice Pavilion is no longer there. Belmont Tunnel's gone, and so much other stuff like that. How does it make you feel knowing like, damn, I was there to witness it and be part of it?
Makes me feel old. I mean, in a way, I guess it was a blessing to be able to have been a part of all that, to have witnessed so much of what people take for granted now in the graffiti culture, to have been a part of its pop up.
Yeah.
Like when we came up with these ideas, like when the early buses with the plastic windows that we decided to start, one day bored on the bus, we started ripping grip tape off of our skateboards.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, hey, that or a rock, and it was like, wow, we got scribers.
Okay.
Then we found out about scribers at the hardware stores. Now scribing was born.
Yeah.
Hey, what are these stickers? What can we do with these stickers? The hello, my name is, and all the other ones. The hell can we do with these? Slap tags came to be.
But you understanding the New York graffiti culture because you're in a way part of it when you were visiting your cousins during vacation. Did you ever meet anybody out here that brought that New York flavor and style here to LA?
Oh yeah, in the early days, you had guys like Soon,
Okay.
Zodiac, Alski, like these. There was guys out here that were really putting in work. I mean, obviously they weren't all New Yorkers. Soon was from New York, but you had other cats that, as well, Chicago and others. But it was an East Coast influence that was pretty dope. And then also, a lot of people didn't realize that Scene did come out here and did hit Belmont when he did do he did a piece out in Hollywood, which I remember having a picture of, the big dial M for murder, and then he had done the Hollywood sign and Belmont.
Okay.
And sadly, a lot of people dissed the throwies at Belmont, thinking it was a toy biting from the book. They didn't realize that Richie actually came and did hit the tunnel.
It was really him.
Yeah, because obviously there was no photos in the book to show that part of it. Nobody knew about that one. You know what I mean? But it was out there. It was done, and it was these were sick ass. I mean, obviously that was all silver and red stuff, but the dial M for murder that was in Hollywood was badass. It was where the Jack in the Box is now, across from where the old Cinerama Dome Theater.
Oh, okay.
On Sunset.
And they got all this. Hey, you're not the real Scene.
No. Well, the dial M for murder didn't get dissed.
Okay,
I got buffed, but that was a badass top to bottom piece. Like the clouds and the lettering was just sick. Like it was on point, simple, crispy, definitely clean. Like it was a well executed wall.
Okay. Yeah, because I did some research and I seen that Brim had came down here too very early. He came down here to film a movie. I believe it's called Rocksteady. He came down with Tat's crew, and they were in Hollywood, downtown Hollywood, and they were like painting the train for the intro of the movie. So they were on set, and while they came down here, I know they connected and they were out here with like Ice-T and stuff. So I'm not sure if you were able to witness what he was doing down here.
I that's news to me. I never even heard about that one.
Oh, okay. Alrighty, so I know you mentioned Soon, and you said Zodiac.
Yeah, Zodiac, Alski.
Can you take me into a little bit of witnessing their styles? Like, did you really see the New York style in them?
You could see the flavor, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one thing that was always noticeable. Early graffiti had so much hip hop influence to it.
Yeah.
That you could see the style. You could see the flavor.
Okay.
It didn't look synthetic.
Gotcha. It looked like it was kind of like it was meant to be there. Like everything made sense.
Well, like for me, for example, when I've always taken on, when I've always mentored people and they want to learn, I tell them like, watch people breakdancing and visualize your letters like people breakdancing. Because to me, that's how I've always visualized. When I rock my wild styles, I visualize each letter as an individual breakdancing and hitting
Okay.
those dope freezes. Like that A's got to hit there and get that nice little twist to it, getting ready for a freeze, or if he's getting ready to do some like down rocking, like so. So each letter, like look at it as that, because at the end of the day, like we used to say in the '90s, like we are the practitioners of the written element of hip hop. So
Okay.
keep it hip hop.
How important was hip hop to you, brother? Is that something that was very impactful for you, like the breakdancing and all that stuff?
Definitely. I mean, myself personally, I never got into it. Like I tried it as a kid, but because of the influence of my cousins and their friends on the block, I stuck more to the graffiti.
Okay.
But hip hop always was that crutch, that brace that I could reach for, because in that I found comfort and camaraderie with other writers, other people that I met, as opposed to the gang mentality.
I get what you're saying. How do you take, what is your take, brother, on, like, we look at hip hop now, right? It's a whole different thing than what it was when it was coming in for graffiti. I felt like graffiti and hip hop and breakdance were all kind of like brothers, and now they seem like long distant cousins because you got these guys now doing trap and stuff like that, where graffiti is not really involved, right? In 2024, what is your take on that?
I mean, quite honestly, the same way how you just mentioned how music in itself got diluted.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, bro. Graffiti itself got diluted too.
Okay.
Like pretty much, that's why for me, like now it's through social media and whatnot. Like I'm really selective what I follow, what I do. I'm still old fashioned, so it gives me a lot of joy when I get to see like people like KRS-One putting knowledge out there,
Okay. Okay.
and for people from my era, like still putting it out there and keeping it 100 compared to like some of the stuff that's going on nowadays.
Gotcha. So at what age would you say you actually formally meet an LA writer?
Well, I don't remember the age, but well, I guess okay. The first writer I could say that I met was my first friend in junior high school, which was Price.
Okay,
At
Price.
that time, he used to write Size, but then he eventually changed it over to Price.
Okay. And how did that come about? Just like, hey, what's up? I like to write too type thing, or
Pretty much, I was just sitting on my own. I was new in school,
yeah.
and because of what I had already been influenced from back east,
Yeah.
I was there trying to work on style, trying to piece, and he came up to me and saw me, what I was doing, and introduced himself, and we hit it off. We were chopping it up during nutrition. So during lunchtime, we linked up again. We were chopping it up some more. Then as we were chopping it up, it turned out we lived down the street from one another.
Oh wow.
Like, oh, you live on such and such. Well, so do I, boo boo. And so from there, it became like a real good friendship. Like he was pretty much like I've told people, like he was the first friend I had going into junior high school, or
Okay.
what they now call middle school, but in my days we called it junior high. So for me, it was like he was like my first, solid friend, and that became a golden friendship. Like he would come to my house and help me sneak out the house. So he'd give my mom some story about,
Yeah.
oh, we're gonna go with the LAPD Explorers, and we were out there in Hollywood catching tags on the line one, or and so from there, like I gained a friendship with his family and his brothers, who now ironically, also are in the writing scene, like Size from LOD,
Yeah.
real close friend, and plus the younger brothers as well. So it was really great to have met Price, and through Price I got to meet Triax
Okay.
and a lot of the other West Coast writers, because especially going to the Triax parties, as, like in those days.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been told about what Triax used to do.
What would he do?
Well, back in those days, you could make a collect call on a payphone,
Uh-huh.
and there was a live operator who you spoke to, and she'd take your name down, and so you'd sit there and you could listen as she asked the person, like, hey, collect call from Francisco, do you accept? And so it was up to you to say yes or no.
Okay.
Well, Triax would call you collect from the payphone. and you'd hear the operator collect call from Francisco, but in the background you'd hear Triax yelling at you. AM, PM, 12 o'clock, don't forget. And he'd hang up. He would hang up so you wouldn't get billed for the call. So it was his way of like, as a true writer, he found a way to rack phone calls. Because he was calling all of his writers for free.
Oh man.
He didn't put that 10 cents in the payphone.
Yeah.
And none of us were getting billed for it. So it was a fantastic technique that Triax had. God rest his soul. You know, he was a real great guy. I loved the guy, you know, for decades. I remember he'd sit there and shake his head because Price and I would drive him nuts. He'd sit there, oh, you'll stop fucking around. Because we'd go crazy on the bus, start, you know, catching tags with the newspaper and catching a tag. He looked so suspicious standing up to catch a rooftop tag. Like, who the hell reads a newspaper with, you know, on the ceiling? But, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. And it was great because Triax would organize us. We'd meet up on the corner of Hollywood and Vermont at the AM PM on Saturdays at 12. And man, if those buses had souls, man, I'm sorry for those buses. Like every bus that pulled up to that stop got annihilated. Like and at that, we were like in SpongeBob, the nematodes. Like we grew as a pack in numbers. And by the time we'd burn the spot by 1 o'clock, I'm talking, bro, like 20, 30 riders.
Oh wow.
And we'd sit there and be like, okay, what's the first racking spot? And now you'd have all these riders getting from bus to bus to bus, just causing chaos.
Oh wow!
Every Saturday, and we meet one another. Like we know other riders that we see up on buses from other parts of the city. That somehow Triax would unite us. So you had riders from the Valley, from South Central, from East LA, riders from everywhere just coming together because of Triax uniting us all.
And you guys all got along, right? There was never like a situation where like, hey, you can't be here type thing.
Nah, it was always back then, bro. It was all hip hop love, like even at that, like in all honesty, in that era of Triax's, you know, uniting us, we weren't even really giving a shit about hip hop, bro. We were just graph writers, just out mobbing bus. We were legitimately bus mobbers. Yeah, you know, like people like Whisk would show up every once in a while to Triax's adventures. Like it was a who's who of who's going to show up. Drew, like all kinds of us would show up and go on the adventures because it was like low key. There's no other way to put it. We were straight up descarados. Like we were just. Like what people do nowadays of this whole like smash and grab at stores, we were doing then. Because I mean, we'd go into like somebody give up a spot. Oh, I got a spot for Pilot Ink. Yeah. You really think that a store is going to survive 20 to 30 teenage kids hungry for Pilot Ink? Yeah. Or Marsh Ink? Like we would just literally be looking at the employees in the face, like seeing the sorrow in their eyes as like, we were just ransacking their stores and just walking out. And literally, like the nematodes and SpongeBob, just cleaning the place out and then on to the next spot.
That must have been a very exciting moment.
It was great. I mean, it was fun because there was the camaraderie. Everybody was having a good time. There was no beefs. Yeah. Everybody would give up a spot to go, you know, one of their rack spots. So it was like we would all share, we'd all gain the knowledge of like, oh, now I know where to go get this. Now I know where to go get that. You know, even at that, some guys would give up clothing spots. So like I said, I mean, I was homeless since I was 13 when my mom first kicked me out. And because of that, the graffiti saved my life because it taught me, you know, with the racking skills, I learned how to rack clothes, how to rack food, how to rack drink. And, you know, just the hustle, making fake bus passes to stay warm on the buses. You know, just certain things like that.
You know, what is, if you could recall, what is that thought process, right? Like you said, being 13, knowing your mom kicked you out, and it's like, this is all I have, graffiti, and the people around me, right? How do those thoughts go through you as a child? Because you're just a child, right? You don't know much.
I guess growing up in the era that I grew up in and the way that I was brought up, I really basically didn't have much of a childhood. That's why I am in my 50s, still acting like a fucking kid, out there painting trains still. You know, like people look at me like, damn, dude, you're a grandpa. I'm like, yeah, and in the 70s and into the 80s, it was really a rough time. And so I kind of really, in a sense, didn't get a chance to have that childhood. So I never really, you know, enjoyed it. It was in a sense like, because of everything I endured in life, I had to be a survivor. Yeah. I had to immediately go into like responsible mode. Like, hey, what am I going to do for tonight? Like, how am I going to cover my bases for tonight? Where am I going to, am I crashing on a bus tonight? Am I crashing, under a bridge? Like, what am I doing tonight? So that basically made it to where I didn't get to enjoy much of like where most of my friends got to, like, I remember one of my close friends growing up, I'll never forget him throwing a tantrum because he wanted a damn Transformers toy from Kmart.
Mm-hmm.
And watching his dad take him out at 9:00 at night to go buy a damn toy, and I'm like, bro, are you shitting me right now? Like, I'm sitting there wondering, like, do I got enough wood to cook my Chef Boyardee tonight in my little camping tent? And this was crying over a fucking Transformer toy. So
You had to grow up quick.
pretty much, yeah. So
I wanted to dive into, brother. I know you told me that Radiotron was just right around the corner from you. How was it walking into Radiotron?
it was great. It was great. I mean, again, it was the music was always it was everything was in its early infancy era. So a lot of the music was just banging.
Okay.
And everything was so new. Like, people were just still in the pioneering phases of the whole scratching and DJing and the whole breaking. And so going into the Radiotron and just seeing how Carmelo turned that whole place around and really made it to what it was, props to him. Because for me, I say it with pride that I at least had the privilege to be able to experience that on several occasions. And also much love to Price for taking me and showing me where it was and opening my eyes to what the Radiotron was.
Oh, so Price was the reason you ended up in there.
Price was the one that took me one day. We ditched school, and around the corner from the Radiotron was there was like a stationery store called McManus Morgan. And I had found that place had the ultra wides.
Okay.
What you guys call four fingers, those gray flat ones. And they had Marsh Inc.
Okay.
So I had told Price, like, yo, let's go, since we did school together, let's go racking. We're on our little racking sprees and we were in the area. So I was like, yo, let's go get some ultra wides. And at that's when he was like, oh, well, let's go check out the Radiotron. I'm like, what do you mean the Radiotron? Like, I hadn't seen it yet. I knew nothing of it yet. So we went over and checked it out. And lo and behold, Rick was there working on like a piece in a regular notebook, like doing a sketch. And Sign, rest in peace, from STN.
Rest in peace.
He was there drawing, and I remember Sign being like so welcoming, like, hey, how you guys doing? And it was really like a great vibe. Like, so to me, yeah, like I'm really blessed and that I had that privilege of experiencing all that.
How was Carmelo? Like, how did Carmelo treat you when you went there? Was he like, hey, man, how you doing? Thank you for coming. Did you get to talk to him?
Not really. I was always really, because of my upbringing and all the traumas in my childhood, I was always really like a quiet, private type person.
Okay.
Unless I really knew you, I really didn't open up. So I would see Carmelo there, but at the time, to me, first off, it was like he's an adult. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's much older. Like, and so it kind of like I was like with that little funny vibe, So it was more like I'm here with Price, like like
I trust Price, but I don't know about this other guy.
I trust Price. I don't know this other dude yet.
Yeah.
Like the more that I got to know Sign, that's how I got to trust in him. Like, David was really solid the more I got to know him. And again, he was another big influence that for me, that's why my whole, I guess because of the way that I got my first taste of graph and the way that I was influenced, I saw it to where I had to work my way up to the crews that were legendary.
Yeah.
So I worked, it took me a long time, but I could at least proudly say that, yes, I made my way into K2S. I worked my way, that was a crew that had a lot of influence in me. And so I was blessed with that, and I'm proud and honored to say that.
How long did it take for you to actually communicate with Rick? Like, did it take a while to kind of like him know who you are and you know who he is?
Yeah, I actually finally got to talking with Rick through Teller.
Okay.
Because growing up, every time I'd see Rick down at Belmont, he didn't seem like the most approachable person.
Okay.
Like I remember seeing him going over I don't remember whose wall it was, but it was some girl's name and it had like the Smurf Village on it. And it was a badass piece down there at Belmont, big. And Rick had a true blue Krylon.
Mm-hmm.
I was busting some rockwood throw-ups, fully spelled out right over it, like no fucks, giving drunk as fuck. So it was one of those things of like, yeah, I don't want to go talk to him right now. Like,
maybe another time.
Yeah, I don't know if he's, you know what I mean? Like I don't know about that. It's like,
Hey, I'm the guy from Radiotron. I seen you the other day.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It was one of those. So it took quite a while, and like I said, until Teller was one who introduced me to Rick, and then from there, I mean, it was just it was a great thing. Like real solid guy, great friendship. An honor and a blessing. To be able to say that he's my friend. Always great time to hanging out with him.
Shout out Rick. I wanted to get into. We were talking about now that we're talking about Belmont. You say you were able to witness the battle, which was TCF versus UTI.
Yeah.
How was that?
That was an interesting battle.
Yeah.
It was quite an interesting weekend. Fun filled. Yeah, I mean it was really interesting, getting to see at that time I was running with UTI.
Okay.
I happened to be up on the billboard catching Design 9 threw me a can for me to catch a roll call on. Yeah. And everybody's painting away. I hear like a lunch bell or something going on.
Like a ding.
And this ding, ding. I'm like, what the hell is this? I look down. Nobody's painting anymore. Everybody's looking like the opposite direction. I turn and look, and it's Cash from STN.
Uh-huh.
Banging Say's head in with a crescent wrench, for whatever reason. And not a drop of paint's getting sprayed.
Yeah.
And from there, I mean, he just, Cash stands, whoops Say's ass, and then stands over, yells this shit, Cash won, STN, Rockwood. Gets his bike, takes off, Everybody gets back to painting. Skill absolutely just slaughtered that wall with that piece and the B-boy and the bus and everything. I mean, that was just mind-blowing. I mean, he just got down with that computer style that he rocked on there. It was a good battle. It was a good all-out, Design 9 put in some work, even though he did go back at midnight and buff the wall and redo it all over again. Shout out to my boy D9 up there in Portland, Oregon. I love you, my nigga. You know you my boy. Fucking
shout out D9.
35 years and still pushing, my boy. Fuck. Yeah, man. That's somebody who's he's a handful to paint with, boy. But yeah, I mean the battle was a great battle. It was a good battle. In my eyes, it was really well done, and I look at it as UTI basically took on that one.
Okay.
Not playing favorites or nothing, but at the end of the day, the way that the guys executed their pieces and the way that it all turned out,
yeah,
it showed a lot of flavor in it.
Oh, okay. I know you mentioned that K2S came into your life, but it's fair to say because of Radiotron and making friendships there, right?
Well, also growing up in pretty much in their hood, right? They're third in Whitmer. I mean, that was.
So they pretty much knew you and knew of you.
Well, they didn't know of me or who I was, but I knew of them.
Okay.
I was, like I said, there was the age difference there, so.
Oh, so they're much older than you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How does UTI come into your life?
I happen to be at the time, it was 87.
Okay.
And I was hanging out on Sunset with the guys from DTW, down to right.
Okay.
And because of the East Coast influence, I was high as hell on PCP that night with a bag load of paint, shermed out. And I run into, he was a classmate of mine in school, and he was from that crew KTL, Kill the Light. Also, one of Say's homies. This guy by the name of Eric Castro. Don't remember what the hell he used to write. But he lived down the street from me because he would always play his crazy death metal music in his garage. And I see him walking down the street with Skill, Swan, Celtic, Omega. I'm not sure if Smurf was there that night, but they're all walking down Sunset. And I got a bag load of paint because I wanted to go put in some work. And so I see Eric and I'm like, "Oh, what's up?" And I see him and he introduces me to Skill and them. And I tell him, like, "Yo, I got some paint." So I give him a can or two, like, let's go fuck around. And lo and behold, Celtic catches a tag on this little old lady's front door.
Mm-hmm.
Now, ironically, this little old lady happens to be the great grandmother of a famous skater at the time, Billy Valdez, a fellow Cuban.
Oh wow.
So the guardian angels snatch up Celtic with their red
Oh.
berets. They got him hemmed up, calling in for the cops to get him on a vandalism charge.
Yeah.
And we're like, "Bro, what the fuck, bro? You know, let him go, whoop de whoop." And so Billy's great grandma, God rest her soul, comes out. Mima comes on, and she's telling, they're talking to her in Spanish, like telling her, we're gonna take him to jail for writing on your door. And she looks at you like, no, she says in Spanish, no, I like it. It's beautiful. Leave it alone.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, what? Like, no. So the homies, the homies from DTW, one of the homies, Heck, shout out to Heck. He's still out there putting in work in AAA. Stay safe out there, my boy. His parents, they had a little market right there. So they went and grabbed some nail polish real quick.
Yeah.
And Celtic buffed off, with the nail polish remover. They buffed off the door with the nail polish remover, and they let him go. So from that point, and then so from there we swapped info, and like it became like a brotherhood that I basically bonded with Skill. Like Skill and I became real solid. Like much love to Skill.
Okay.
And Swanee, and then I became a member of UTI in around '87. And from there, like I said, it was just, the whole camaraderie, the brotherhood of just looking out for one another again, like being out there. Now with the UTIs, we would like build off of one another's styles, like helping each other out, building up and getting better and better. And, a lot of us were influenced by Skill, obviously.
Okay.
He was basically, he was putting it out there real solid. So, which I'm sure even to this day, you look at a lot of the UTI members, from my era, the initial core crew, and you look at it, and if you can dissect graph, you'll see Skill's influence in that graph.
You and your personal perspective, what do you think set UTI aside from the rest of the crews in LA at that time?
The unity, the way that they were basically like bringing each other together, like the whole, having an actual legitimate meeting, not just everybody getting together and partying and going out racking and doing this madres.
Yeah.
UTI had more of like a structure to it.
Okay.
And like doing a lot more in that era, even at that, like how it always continued. But UTI was one of the first crews I dealt with doing a lot of legal murals and stuff.
Okay.
Doing the legal walls, like MacArthur Park and stuff like that. So, they basically, under Skill's leadership, they had their stuff they had it together.
Okay. Bro, throughout your journey that, you were down with K2S, then UTI, and throughout that period of time, did you ever have an urge of like, man, I wish I could make it back to New York and see what's going on over there with my cousins and stuff?
Well, like I said, sadly, my cousin had passed, in '92, but we would talk on the phone here and there, and stay in a bit of communication and stuff. Sadly, I mean, once the train era went out, Graph kind of went in a different route. I mean, don't get me wrong, into the early '90s, you still had like Ghost and Reese, and a lot of the JA, the RIS AOK guys were just slaughtering XTC, BYI. Much props to those guys. They were just putting it down on the clean trains.
Okay.
A lot of riders are still, they were putting in work out there, but it didn't seem the same anymore.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It pretty much, the game had changed.
And before your cousin sadly left us, were you guys in communications like, hey, I'm out here doing what you taught me? I'm from UTI now type thing, or I'm from K2S type thing, or was it kind of just like, hey, what's up type thing?
No. Like, I mean, I would still try to talk graph with him, but sadly, his mentality went into the drug game.
Oh, okay.
Like, he like I tried to talk to him about graffiti, and his responses would be about making money.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Like, I want to make some money. I ain't trying to think, so it was sadly, his mentality went a different route.
Okay. So you're with UTI, right? You're with UTI. You're a member of UTI, and what's after that for you?
Well, from UTI, that's when from UTI I went into STP. Yeah, so from STP, then from there, I just ran around with like a bunch of different other crews.
Okay.
Got in wherever I could fit in. Like I had some fun with that. Ran around with like the JORJSs for a little bit. Like when I was hanging in the Hollywood crowd,
Okay.
and a few of the MTAs because I was painting with Blossom. We were doing a lot of trains together when Skate passed away. So she was a hell of a partner to paint trains with. Real sick styles. Like Blossom was all about it. And
How was it meeting Skate? You had the opportunity to interact with Skate, like paint and stuff.
yeah, since back in the early '80s, like when there used to be a yard off of Fountain in Hollywood. It was a crew called ABC, Art by Crime,
Okay.
and basically, I would bump into him there on occasions, and or we'd run into each other on the line one on the buses.
Okay.
And Skate was always a real solid person, man. Real, my description of him would be a gentle giant.
Okay.
Real great guy, dude. Like always greeted you with a smile, open hand, like, always real big handshake, solid person. Absolute shame that we lost him at such a young age.
Okay. May he rest in peace. He was way before my time. I didn't get an opportunity to meet him, but my respects to him and may he rest in peace. He was CBS while you were like interacting with him.
Yeah, I remember meeting him when he was in beginning CBS, like when CBS was in its infancy.
Okay.
That he had told me about it when I ran into him at the ABC yard.
Oh, okay.
And through the years, like I said, we would run into one another. Like I remember it was funny. The last time that I got to actually interact with him was at the Sunset and Sanborn yard.
Okay.
And I had put up a crew on my piece, and Skate comes up and tells me like, "Yo, A1, you should buff that off, because JA and Chino and them are down here from New York, and they're dissing everybody whoop de whoop." And I was like, "Nah, well, it is what it is, bro." And so I let it run, and I show up the next morning to the Sanborn yard, and sure enough, everybody's shit's dissed.
Oh wow.
Except mine. they had cracked throw-ups over everybody. Like the whole yard just got annihilated with throwies. Typical of them cats. Them cats was cold. Them, there was like them dudes was they was with it. If they came into a yard, they let it be known. And so yeah, typical, in fashion of what they did, they stomped out that yard.
But they were going over full-on color burners with just a throw-up?
That was what they came to do. I mean, obviously it was before your era, but J.A. was really a notorious cat, bro. Like he came out here several times just to stir up the pot. Like he would come out here and just diss everybody. Like,
oh wow.
Like it was basically like the thing, like, like just come one, come all type of shit. You know what I mean? Like he was on it.
He was full on like I'm ready for whatever type thing.
Oh, them cats was, exterminating toy crews. Like that's what their crew, the XDC crew, like them cats they was rocking it, like them cats was putting in work.
I'm assuming that some cats weren't feeling so friendly about him doing that to their stuff.
Oh no, I mean, bro, like in all honesty, like he ruffled a lot of people's feathers, a lot of people, It's like, a lot of he had a lot of people talking, but they put in the work. They had freeways, expressways, they had the trains, they had billboards, all the yards. I mean, there was just, even if you had like a little hidden spot under some bridge, you thought like it was, I got a little cutty.
Yeah, they're coming.
Surprise! You show up the next morning like, what the? And so yeah, they was about it. There was that era in the '90s when it was like the Wild West. People started feuding and it became a free for all for a while.
How did you feel after that Fox 11's news interview where they made it seem like tag banging was like what everybody was doing? That Fox 11 skit.
I mean, yeah, sadly there was always a lot of people that gave us a bad rep. I mean, one thing that honestly, like the differences for me between the East and West was you could see people's graph and you kind of had an idea what borough they were from, like who their influences were.
Okay.
Out here, everybody would hide their black books like it was some top secret CIA fucking, it's like it was a secret recipe to some fucking,
Yeah.
And everybody was so concerned with biting and biting and biting. And because of that mentality, that's where the whole tag bang thing, because if it would have stayed the way it was in the early 80s where people were evolving and everybody was kind of critiquing one another, like, yo, that's you're biting a little too hard off of so and so or this and that. Instead, they fucking basically hid everything and didn't bother to influence people. So the only influence they had was what they picked up from their neighborhood.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it's like, I only see what my big brother's doing, but I want to be out there chasing buses too. So it was like, and then also the other thing too in its early days that a lot of people did, you get rolled up by gangsters. I'm a tagger. They'd leave you alone.
Even though
they were out putting in work looking for other barrios. So they were looking for other homies that were out banging, not taggers. You were basically back in that era, a tagger, you were nobody. You were like a civilian type of shit.
Yeah, like just a guy hitting up type thing.
Yeah, it was like, all right, whatever, dude, vales madre.
But then it got pretty serious though because there was a situation, right?
Because of the tag banging evolving, you had so many guys that were banging.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so they would run up on fools that they knew were taggers.
Yeah.
And pull the banger card. And then all of a sudden, when the real bangers pulled up, I'm a tagger.
Oh.
Like it was like a Harry Potter cloak. Like, look at me now.
You see me now, you see me down.
Yeah. I'm a tagger, I'm a banger. You know what I mean? So it was like, come on, bro. We're like, what are you doing? So that's when eventually the whole thing became an issue. So many little chingaderas that made it an issue to where the barrios got involved and said, fuck it, green light all the taggers.
Yeah.
Which a lot of people sadly fell for it and got into neighborhoods.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Because they got pressed.
Yeah.
I know because I went through it. Where I live at, there's several different barrios that all were like always been going after that piece of real estate. And at that, going to school with some of these cats and all that and growing up, how I grew up on the streets, they all knew. So they were all trying to recruit me into their neighborhoods. And I'm like, nah, bro, like, what the fuck? Like, I'm just me, bro. I'm A147, bro. It's me. It's A, bro. And I'd have to throw hands and I got pressed, but I stood my ground. I'd tell them, I'd even tell them straight out, like, how you expect me to back you guys up when you want to jump me in? Like really, bro?
That's what you're trying to do to me after we've been knowing each other for X amount of time.
Like, I've had your back through other shit. When them fools try to jump you, I had your back, jumped in, and it wasn't even my beef. But you're the homie. But now all of a sudden you want to get me in your neighborhood? Like, what the fuck kind of shit's that?
And how was it with your peers at the time that were riding with you, right? That you guys were painting, like, was there something really serious to kind of look out for? Like, damn, we're green-lighted right now. We should kind of like kick back, or was it kind of like, you know what? Let's go do what we got to do, and whatever happens, happens.
I mean, everybody pretty much had their own take and mentality on it.
Yeah.
For me personally, I kept doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
I stuck to me. I kept it 100. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
So I kept doing graph painting here and there, doing little chingaderas, and then eventually I just got so fed up with all what really burned me out was doing paid walls.
Mm-hmm.
And you're putting like 2 days, 3 days effort into these walls for a customer, the owner of the business that's paying you. And you got these kids that are there asking you 20 million questions, watching you paint all day long to try to learn your techniques. And then little fuckers come at night and they write on your wall.
Oh, man, that's messed up.
So, for example, it happened a few times to where I went and hunted these kids down. Like, I see their tag, okay, that's what they wrote. Now I diss them. And then everywhere that I'd see their shit, just boom. And typical of most taggers, they stay close to home.
Mm.
Real writers go for the all city.
Yeah.
But your little trendy taggers will just usually hit close to home.
Okay.
So you could usually find these fuckers. And lo and behold, yeah, I would. Eventually I'd find them, and when they'd confront me for dissing their tags and their little throw-ups, and I'd tell them, like, well, how the fuck you think? You're mad because I went over your little simple tags. How do you think it made me feel when you went over my wall and you stood there watching me do it for 2-3 days?
And waited for me to finish and just come and do whatever it is that you're doing.
Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, oh, but it's like, yeah, but just because it's a wall doesn't mean you can come and write on it. Just because there's a free spot there doesn't mean I buffed it out for you to write your name.
Yeah.
And the more and more that this continued and continued and continued and continued with more of these kids, because let's be honest, taggers keep multiplying.
Yeah, definitely.
So you can't keep up with the flow. I got burned out, and that's when I transferred back to trains.
Okay.
I went back to freights. It was more enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
I could paint at night instead of painting in the daytime getting cooked. I could order, there was few yards that were cool enough that I could sit there and use an address of a warehouse, order Domino's pizza and a 2-liter of Pepsi.
Oh, so you were big chilling in there.
You know what I mean? Like, fucking turn around and bullshit the guy like, hey, the intercom's busted. Just call me back at this number and give me a few minutes to come down. The elevator's broken too. Bullshit. I had to walk out of the train yard to go to that front of that building. Find a shopping cart or whatever, a tire, whatever the hell. Have my pizza, my 2-liter, roll a couple of blunts, have a good old time, bro.
Yeah, I hear you. I could understand 100%. I wanted to dive into, brother, WCA for you. Can we talk about how that came about for you?
Well, pretty much when I got into UTI in 87, Skill was already pushing on WCA as well.
Okay.
And then through Skill, I linked up with Design 9. Even though ironically I went to school with his kid sister, I knew who she was.
Okay.
But we officially got, linked up through Skill. And as we used to joke around, WCA, Wayne Carlisle's army. And so D9 and I basically got really tight. Like we formed an actual brotherhood. Like many times I'd come home and find he'd be at my dining table.
Mm-hmm.
Into like his second or third plate of food that my mom would have served him. So he was, legitimately. I mean, people know who know us. They know we were like the dynamic duo. D9 and A1. Like, it was
Okay.
like everywhere, either one of us. Like I still go places and people will ask me, like, "Yo, what up with D9? What I'll FaceTime call him or something." But he's the one that I like seeing the WCA influence because I got to see the K2S WCA battle at Belmont. And that was also really...
How was that? That must have been epic.
It was. I mean, it was legendary in many proportions.
Yeah.
Like first of all, just to see how West Coast came in and slammed out the whole yard.
Mm-hmm.
But then the fact of like to see how Prime and Deffer just held their ground and just hit them with that devastating blow. I mean, dude, that like the pieces they rocked with that Bucky O'Hare character, it was just like, bro, that shit was just, it was out there. I mean, so it was like to see them just stand their ground like that and be able to take it on was extraordinary. And then to see WCA come out in such strength to hit the yard like that was also extremely impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, that's why my goals always was K2S. The way I always saw it in my eyes, K2S held the cream of the crop. They were the top notch.
Yeah.
WCA was right under that. And then the other crews came down the ladder.
Mm-hmm.
So as a writer, that's why my writing career, I worked my way up that ladder, So I put in work for decades with West Coast before I got on K2S.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
And put in a lot of work single-handedly on my own or with Design 9, repping for the coast.
What were some of the very first members of WCA aside of your friends that you met? Because there's just so many, like PJ, you had a...
PJ was a real solid cat.
Yeah.
I got the opportunity to paint with PJ a couple times, God rest his soul.
May he rest in peace.
And Rival as well. Like West Coast was just really it was a crew to look up to.
Okay.
Just in every aspect, because Minor and Sir were absolutely killing it on transit. Minor with his drippers.
Yeah.
It seemed like those drippers ran for days. And Sir Whisk was just slaughtering them with his crazy long red hair back in those days. I mean, down to his waist and his Dodger cap. Yeah, I mean, West Rivals styles were just on point.
Yeah.
Cool Boy. I mean, just they were all just heavy hitters in their own aspect. Like,
okay.
Like they basically had it. So to me, once Design finally put me on the coast, it was a blessing for me. Like when he finally was like, "Yo, hey, I'm putting you on the coast. Like, You ready now?
And you linking what the members are now. Like I know you guys have Create, Trickster, Risk, and so many more. You guys still connect from time to time?
Well, Risk is somebody who I know
Okay.
of,
Yeah.
but never really chopped it up with them.
Okay.
Um, like I West Coast was such a diverse crew, so I met some of the guys that were out there. Like at the time that I was out there, and got to meet some of the guys. Um, like Whisk, I met when I was with Price in junior high school.
Yeah.
Um, but like Risky, I didn't meet until much later on in life. And people like for example, going to the Fairfax yard and seeing like what Flame was dropping there. It was just really impressive stuff. These guys had some real crispy can control. Their styles were on point. Their fillings were solid.
Okay.
And it really like WCA was a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Obviously you had extreme heavy hitters in K2S, but West Coast was a force to be reckoned with as well.
Shout out West Coast. Throughout your journey, brother, is there anything that you regret doing or not doing as far as graffiti?
Not really, bro. I mean, in all the time that I've been doing this, I've done so much, and there's a lot of stuff that I've done that people don't really even know about.
Yeah.
That I've got photos and stuff of that I'm not gonna release until the day that I pass.
Okay.
Like that's why like my wife's working on writing. My wife and Glorianne, they're working together to try to start piecing together a book about me.
Okay.
And so in that way, once I'm gone, like I don't want to get popped on some of the shit I did, but I did some wild shit.
Okay.
And graffiti wise, especially.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people try to talk about they did this, they did that. Like, well, I got proof. I got blueprints and everything, like legitimate. I did my homework. I went on some serious James Bond, Mission Impossible, like Ethan Hunt had nothing on me type of shit. And y'all just gonna have to wait until I kick the bucket to find out what this crazy motherfucker did.
Stay tuned for the book. Stay tuned for the book. Book signing and all that is coming.
Well, I mean, unless you got somebody doing a seance, give me the signing book. But yeah, no, much love to the Carswell family up in Snohomish, Washington. They're holding it down with the Apex Art Center up there. They're documenting and keeping true West Coast graph alive. And much love, Johnny.
It's called Apex.
It's the Apex Art Center. They're on IG, Apex Cultural Center, and Glorianne, Johnny, Abigail. You guys, holding it down. Love you guys. They, much love.
So it's like a gallery where you could go see a bunch of work on canvas?
Yes, they've got a massive collection of a lot of the real writers.
Okay.
Got their work on canvases. They've also got a great restaurant.
In there?
Yeah, in
Oh,
there. It's
wow.
a 4-story building they bought.
Where is this at again?
It's the building's in Everett, Washington,
Okay.
near Seattle. A lot of us have been up there, like Drew, Whisk, a lot of the UTIs.
Yeah.
Ichabod. I mean, their collection is extremely extensive. Stay High 149. Everybody who's who. A lot of King 157. Like,
Oh, really?
they got a lot of people stuff up in there. Like these people show mad love, and what they're doing to keep graffiti alive is absolutely extraordinary.
Apex Center, I'm coming. I'm going to come check you guys out. Seattle, I'm on my way.
Yeah, they got graph outside. They inside. It's great.
I got to go check it out.
Yeah, and like I said, they do events. They do concert events.
Okay.
It's a 4-story building that they just basically gave it a facelift, and it's a badass place.
When everything is said and done for, brother, what do you want the world to remember you for in the graffiti world?
Well, I mean, for me, it's always been a thing of how many people I could touch,
Yeah.
how many people I could influence.
Okay.
I never got into the graffiti game to become famous. I got into I was forced into this game through, by my cousin and his friends. God rest his souls. They introduced me to this game, and I basically took it to another level.
Okay.
I stuck with it, and for me, whoever's lives I could touch and help through graph, then so be it. Like through the family up there in Washington, through the Carswells, I was blessed enough to make the acquaintance of a really great, talented young artist
Okay.
um, named Malachi.
Okay.
And he and his sister are both dying of Batten's disease. That's
What
why I got this tatted on me.
what is Batten disease? I'm not familiar with that.
It's a very rare disease that basically deteriorates the whole body. Like everything, neurologically, physically, everything
Okay,
is
okay.
deteriorating. So Malachi, I was introduced to Malachi through the Carswells. He's a great, talented artist. He was born with autism,
Okay.
and at 18, he was diagnosed with this disease. I mean, he was real talented, and once we met, we got to paint a canvas together,
Okay.
and from there, our friendship just blossomed, and I absolutely love painting with this kid. Even though he's losing his vision and his muscle control, like he gets tremors every now and then, so he paints with aerosol now, and he smudges with his fingers, does a lot of drips. You can see a lot of his work on his Instagram, MMCS Drips. He's real great kid. He's got work in the Nike art offices. I mean, the
Oh
kid's
wow.
really talented, and so we've painted quite a few pieces together, collaborated on some stuff, and I was blessed enough to paint his and his sister's wheelchairs, so that way they could have their wheelchairs pimped out.
Oh,
So like I said, we all went and got tattooed together and stuff. So
they're dipping in style. Shout
yeah,
out to both of them, man. I wish you guys nothing but the best. Can you tell me a little bit about this frame that you brought today?
well, that's pretty much one of the taken from one of my black books.
Okay.
So as you see, typical of what I love doing in black books of rocking my styles.
Yeah, yeah.
So I've got my A1 piece, the wild style there with influences from TC5 fill-ins and stuff. And then of course repping for K2S up on top, all with graph supplies.
Okay.
You see the whole K2S there spelled out.
Yeah.
Just and then as well the pilot marker still with Marsh Ink, ganking the Krylon because that was around the time period that Krylon got bought by whoever the hell's running them now that made them made them suck.
Oh, so they got bought.
Yeah, Krylon used to be owned by Borden.
Oh.
Back in the early days, that's when Krylon was on top. Krylon was owned by Borden. You would see the little Borden label on them and all that. All the graph heads out there that got the old cans know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, 360 is a great paint. I like using it.
It's just this little things you gotta maneuver around, but
Yeah, it's got its little quirks, but I mean, so does everything else. But I like the fact, I could basically start to finish with just a Lego tip.
Okay.
Just got to pop its cherry with a extreme fat cap
Yeah.
or a WD-40 tip or something. But I mean, it's shout out to 360. They're doing a great job. I'd like to see some more colors come out. Bring back some of the old school Krylon colors.
If anybody wanted to grab something like this on the frame, is it available to the world?
Oh yeah, you can go ahead and check out on. I got an Instagram, All Out Clothing, and there's all kinds of merchandise on there: shirts, hats, prints.
Check out the hat though. I got one right here.
Anybody who wants also custom work, if they want denim jackets like the old school B-boy jackets, I do those as well. Having come from that era, Hex and I are always comparing jackets that we do with one another. Like it's something we always enjoy doing. Like so, yeah, you can check it out. Reach out at me. Like I said, All Out Clothing, or you could also reach me direct, AYE147 _ KD _ TDS. Kings Destroy, the Death Squad. Hit me up through IG, either or.
What can you say to that kid out there, brother, that might watch this, or not even a kid, just anybody in general that wants to get into graffiti today?
Don't. There's too many people doing it already. No, I mean, you know what? Look, in all honesty, there's always going to be people out there wanting to do graffiti. Like I've had this discussion for 4 decades now. How I've always said, I mean, graffiti's always been around. It dates to the early civilizations. Hieroglyphics, man writing on walls, right? So we've always been having wanting to do that. The urge to just leave something behind. You had Johnny Loves Susie when they carve it in the 50s on a tree.
Yeah.
So pretty much everybody's always going to want to write. It's always that inner urge. to people out there that want to start getting into this game, I mean, hey, this is the time to do it. The culture is different now. You have many distributors of paint that are low pressured, user friendly. They have a mad assortment of tips that'll make your head spin, just trying to figure out what you like. And it's culturally accepted now. I mean, for crying out loud, it's in museums, it's on commercials. It's pretty much it's out there. It's something that people have accepted. So go out and do it.
Be wise about it.
Yeah, don't do like we did and chase the buses and don't go get in front windshields and rooftops and stuff. But do what you got to do. I mean, it's just sad that here in LA there's no longer any major yards like we had before. But hey, that's because the powers that be they've stripped us of our yards and graffiti went all city. Now they want to cry about it. Well, what did you think was going to happen?
100%. I got two last questions for you, brother, before we get on out of here. My first one would be, I know you mentioned two crews right now, KD, and you said Terror Squad?
The Death Squad.
The Death Squad, sorry. How do those come about for you in your life?
Well, for me, recently, in the past couple of years, I was going through a little bit of drama in the graph game, and had to part ways with a crew. But ironically, at the same time that I was going through that, I got blessed. Much loved Part 1. Spanish Harlem's finest.
Okay.
He blessed me and put me on the Death Squad, and to me, it was a real boost when I was going through tough times. So it helped me out because to be able to be accepted by the architects as one of their own, and then from there through social media, I ended up linking up and making good acquaintances with the brother Post One from Kings Destroy.
Okay.
In the Bronx, and we happen to have similar struggles in life and understand one another. So reached out to a brother knowing how it feels like to be alone in the world when you're going through that.
Okay.
And we just, we kind of connected and it became a thing. So I got, he blessed me and let me know straight up, like, yo, dead up, you ain't no toy. Like, Kings Destroy all day. And much love to that, because he linked me up and introduced me to some brothers out here. Like I got blessed with, linking up and painting with the brother ZC1.
Shout out ZC1.
And out here in Long Beach, and real blessing, linking up with them and
the
some
Air
of the other
Graphics
brothers.
King.
So yeah, what I'm saying? It's like
I think there's some 777 members there from KD too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
We destroying it. I mean, the way Cope laid it out. We're doing it.
Have you had a chance to paint with Cope?
No, not yet. I mean, we really haven't really chopped it up. Like follow each other through social media and stuff. But I know Cope stays really busy out there, so I just got to do my best to make sure that I don't let the team down. I mean, I got to make sure that everybody on KD and everybody on the Death Squad knows that I'm keeping that torch up here on the West Coast. I'm holding it down, and whenever I go out there, I'm letting everybody know that that's who I'm repping.
Okay. Last question I got for you, brother. You come from a time where social media wasn't really even there for graffiti. How has social media impacted you as a writer?
I mean, in all honesty, I got into social media very late in life.
Okay.
Because of the whole A1 persona, the whole, the 147 persona, it's like I was a very underground cat. So I never really, like I said, I never got into this game to become famous. I never got into this game for any to get rich. My pursuit in the graph game was to bomb, to really like put in work. So I got in late on social media, and having done so, I see how there's so many people out there nowadays that just basically put their 2 cents in, but don't really have a clue of what the hell what the game is all about.
Yeah.
So now I just see it as it's a tool of amusement.
Yeah.
That's out there for people to entertain themselves with. But
okay.
At the end of the day, you need to keep it 100.
Okay. Can you give me your top 5 writers from the West Coast? What's your top 5?
Top 5 writers from the West Coast. Damn, that's a good one there. You got a lot of guys out here with a lot of good style and a lot of good technique.
Let's say your era.
Well, I mean, we'd have to start out the list with Rick because
Okay.
he was one of the hitters. Rick,
Skept.
Prime, Rival, Soon. I say, you know, those be off the top of my head right there. Like, but I mean, the list I can go on for days on that list. I mean,
You heard him. He gave us the top 5 right here, exclusive.
you know, it's like definitely Skilly should be on that list right there. Like, you know,
Yeah,
like 5A, you know, put Skilly right there. You know,
the bonus track. to
yeah,
the
saying, you know, because you know he's another ill one. You know,
Yeah.
can't forget about, you know, Hex. A lot of people out there, you know, it's that really that took it and got with it. You know,
Yeah.
So
Again, brother, I just want to really thank you for stopping by the studio today. This was an amazing conversation. I learned a lot. Thank you. And I hope that everybody out there enjoys it. If you guys want a part 2, 10,000 comments will make it happen. Till next time, make sure to visit gotnocontrol.com. And before I forget, do you have any shout outs you want to give out?
well, shout out basically to everybody out there who's keeping it 100. My boy Gas, Duke, definitely, Sen, the little homie Create. You know, can't forget about little Eric. Big props and shout out to my wife putting up with all my crazy shit all these years. Yeah, like I said, you know, everybody out there that's keeping it good or keeping it 100, keep doing what you're doing, keep bombing, keep painting, and let's keep graffiti alive for another 40, 50 years.
Make sure to follow A1 on Instagram. Hit him up for some clothing. Look at this dope frame back here. Get you one. It's all love. Don't forget to visit gotnocontrol.com and check out our official merchandise. Like and subscribe. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. Till next time, we out. Peace.